Hello. Thank you for dialing in to listen to my gut talk. I've been inspired to run these talks because of my own gut issues, and some friends and family have not been well. And I've learned a lot along the way. I've been frustrated by how little doctors actually know. Even some of the consultants I've seen don't seem to understand the very basics. They are just not taught these things at medical school. And Dr. Chatterjee, a well-known British general practitioner or primary care physician if you're in the States, says this too, and is campaigning to change tuition in medical schools to be more nutrition and lifestyle focused. It is worth pointing out that I'm not a qualified doctor, but I did study human biology at the University of London Medical School, and I sat in the same lectures as the doctors, and I had the same tutors. And I've been following the research for over 20 years. Interestingly, when I ran this talk 3 weeks ago, I had doctors on the call and they were writing notes because they didn't know this stuff. Today, I want to talk to you about why you or someone you know may be experiencing gut issues. We'll briefly cover why we eat, what we eat, how we should eat, and when. Now, you might think you already know this, and even if you don't have any issues, you may be surprised to know some of the things I'm going to tell you. So I encourage you to stay to the end. I'll also be doing a follow-up talk in a month when I'll cover how to know whether your gut is functioning properly. Again, you might be surprised. 10% of UK GP appointments are for gut-related issues, according to the Guts charity. But these are not just gut issues. All wellness is related to the gut. As Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said 2,500 years ago, he said that all disease starts in the gut. And it struck me that gut issues are taboo in our culture, but you are not alone. Most people believe we eat for energy, right? Contrary to this, the reason we eat is actually not for energy. We eat for nutrients. The energy is secondary. And if we are not eating and absorbing those nutrients, we're not going to function properly. Health is directly impacted by how well you digest and assimilate your food and eliminate toxins. You are literally what you eat, drink, ingest, and controversially, absorb through your skin. And we'll talk about the latter at another talk. To emphasize my point, the protein you eat is broken down into its component parts, its amino acids, and restructured into your own cells. Protein is especially important as it's a major component of your immune system. So the digestive system is fundamental to your immune system. 70 to 80% of your immune system lies in your gut. And interestingly, an element is in your mouth as well. Digestion is really important for sleep, for energy levels, for mood. We now know that 95% of our happy hormone serotonin is actually produced in the gut. Digestion is also important for excretion of toxins and much more. Eating triggers muscle contractions in your gut called peristalsis, which helps to excrete waste and toxins. And we'll talk more about this and what cues you should be looking out for in your digestive system next time. Now, there was a time fairly recently when doctors actually thought your blood, brain and body were entirely separate. This would be more of a brain-body disconnection. Indeed, your gut sends more signals to the brain than it receives back. And I will be covering this in more detail in my next talk, so do tune in. You owe it to yourself to eat properly and take the time. As you know, gut issues are sometimes complex and can be more so than I have time to talk to you about today. However, making some small changes, simple ones, can really help your digestion, how well you feel in yourself and your overall health. As we all know, what we're eating could be causing issues. We'll go into that more in future talks, but food sensitivities and allergies are on the rise. This is largely due to the way we produce our food, not just processing, but overproduction, leaching of soils, and industrializing our food growth and farming practices. And there are many foods that are naturally hard to digest anyway, such as legumes and even nuts and seeds. Now, it might be due to their physical structure, like seeds with their hard outer coating, due to the chemical content, like oligosaccharides in legumes, which is a type of sugar that's hard to digest and causes bloating, or anti-nutrients like phytates and tannins, which reduce the digestibility of starches, proteins, and fats, and actually bind to the mineral content. There are some certain ways that you can make foods easier to digest, with cooking, soaking, sprouting, and fermenting. But for some food groups, there'll always be an issue. For example, even if you don't think you have a problem with gluten, I'm afraid we all do. The protein gliadin in gluten is known to make your gut more permeable to toxins, bacteria, and substances that should not be passing that gut-blood barrier. Several studies now show that gluten does not just cause gastric symptoms, but also manifests in cancer, neurological problems, including schizophrenia. What you eat directly impacts your gut microbiome, which directly impacts your health. And again, we'll talk about this another time. But suffice to say, at this stage, your gut bacteria play an important role in immunity and metabolism, including the manufacture of vitamins and other important metabolites, such as butyrate. Now, these metabolites are known to regulate anxiety, mood, cognition, and pain, amongst other things. So how can we ensure we are digesting and absorbing the nutrients in our food and eliminating the waste? It really occurred to me that as children, we're not taught something as basic as how to eat properly. I'm talking about the way we ingest. There are some simple steps and also some further steps you can take to support your body. So let's begin with the simple ones. Let's just take a moment to think about where digestion happens. You'll probably say to me, well, it's in your stomach or in your gut. But really, it doesn't start there. The savvy amongst you will actually say it's in your mouth, and that's true. But there's a step before that. The very first place that digestion happens is actually in your senses, your eyes, nose, mouth, even your ears. What's important here is the human ritual of food preparation. Rituals are really important in humans. They are prescribed ways of doing things that serve a purpose. In this case, getting your body ready to eat, digest, and assimilate food. So we'd be thinking about food, what we're going to cook, the menu, the recipe, the ingredients, picking out food from the fridge and the cupboards, and seeing that food, starting to chop it, hearing the chopping, smelling the food as you cut into it and start to cook it. And this all sends signals to your brain that you're going to eat, which will cause you to salivate and produce stomach acid and digestive enzymes. And this is really important for digestion. But as we'll come on to later, these things don't always happen. So we've talked about food preparation, but hopefully you're thinking, well, hang on a minute. What if I order a takeaway, or someone prepares my meal for me, or I might have pre-prepared it earlier? Then there's no preparation. You decide you're hungry, and you decide to do a takeout, and you look through a menu, maybe you look at some pictures. But once you've placed your order, that's it. Your doorbell rings, the food arrives, and you sit down and eat straight away. That's a real shock to your digestive system. So if you do have a takeaway, or your food is prepared for you or pre-prepared, it's really important to put into practice the other rituals we'll talk about today. So what can you do? We're rarely fully present in body, mind and spirit when we're eating these days. We are watching TV, we're scrolling on Facebook, possibly eating stood up at our desks or rushing between meetings. But being present is fundamental to us for being able to digest our food. By thinking about the food, looking at it, the colours, the sight, the smell, it will cause us to salivate, produce stomach acid and digestive enzymes, and tell our brain that food is coming. We need to remove distractions when eating. It's also worth saying that we should be allowing ourselves lots of time to eat. I mean at least half an hour to 45 minutes, uninterrupted. Ideally, we'd be sat down to eat. And before we eat, it really helps to take 3 deep breaths, which just helps to relax you and get you into a parasympathetic state, which is a relaxed rest and digest state instead of a stressed state. We should be sat upright because we often tend to slouch these days, and slouching compresses our digestive organs and makes it very difficult to ingest properly and give the food space to move through the digestive system. Let's get on to the important bit, the eating. There are digestive enzymes in your saliva, mainly the enzyme amylase, which breaks down starch, and also lipase, which breaks down fats. Now, there's a big caveat here. That is if you're able to produce these. And we'll come on to a bit later about the fact that doctors just aren't taught the fact that these things might be absent, or they might not be being produced optimally. And this is especially true in everybody after the age of 35. Later on, we'll talk about what we can do to help that. Again, you need to be fully present in order to produce enough of these enzymes and digestive enzymes. You can actually consciously notice the difference in salivation and how you feel after eating when you pay attention to your food, and I really encourage you to practice this, ideally over a number of meals, because one meal isn't enough to notice the difference. When eating, you should take a small portion of food, not a massive forkful, but something quite small. Pop it into your mouth and ideally rest the fork down between mouthfuls, which just allows you to focus on eating. The sensation of food on your tongue will cause you to salivate and trigger your brain. With your tongue, you should be rolling the food around, really tasting it and chewing on it. It's so easy for us these days to just shove something in, chew it twice and swallow it, and not even taste it. We barely even chew. If we don't savour it, we don't salivate properly, and it's not broken down, which makes it harder to digest. We're also sending important signals to our brain about what we're eating here, so your body knows what to expect. Saliva works in conjunction with your teeth when chewing. Your teeth clearly mechanically break down the food, which increases that surface area for your saliva to enzymatically break it down. Mahatma Gandhi once said to chew your soup and drink your food. It's quite a strange idea, but I think the meaning behind it was you should be chewing well. I wonder how many times you chew before you swallow. Have a think about that. The ideal is to chew 50 times before you swallow. Now, obviously, depending on what you're eating. I mean, if you're eating a steak, yes, you'll want to chew 50 times. But if you're eating scrambled egg, then that would be a bit different. But I challenge you to count that many chews and feel the difference between when you'd normally swallow and what the food is like if you've chewed it 50 times. In the interest of being realistic, you could aim for 50 and hit 30, but the most important thing is that the food is more liquid. As you can imagine, this makes you a slow eater. My friends and family tell you I am the world's slowest eater. Chewing well not only helps with digestion, but also improves the taste and is helpful for weight control too. Because it takes about 20 minutes for your brain to recognize you've eaten a meal and feel satiated. So slowing down really helps with this and means you eat less. When you swallow the food, it will go down into your stomach where there is further digestion. Now, your stomach contains hydrochloric acid, which is around the pH of 1.5 to 2, which is roughly the pH of lemon juice. It's really quite acidic. And that acid helps to activate the digestive enzyme called pepsin, which helps you digest protein. Now, protein can be really hard to digest, with some really nasty side effects if you can't break it down properly. So it's one to really concentrate on. Most digestion and absorption happens in your small intestine through the mediation of digestive enzymes. And as I mentioned before, these may not be present or they might be insufficient. Again, it's really important to ensure you're present with your food and you're really tuning in so that you do produce these digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid. You can actually supplement with both of these, and I especially recommend this after 35 years old. Now, there are certain types of supplements that are better than others, so do get in touch if you want to know more. Ideally, we'd only be eating a small amount. Ideally, we'll stop when we're 80% full. And we'd also eat quality foods, preferably organic, whole foods, i.e. not processed, grass-fed meat, wild fish, and we'll talk more about this another time. At the end of the meal, I really recommend just sitting down for a while afterwards, if possible, and just allowing your body to digest. This is because the blood rushes to your digestive system. But if you get up and are stressed or doing various different activities straight after eating, your blood is detracted from your digestive system, which can make it really hard to digest and assimilate those nutrients. Another thing I recommend is during eating is taking lots of deep breaths, even if you only remember at intervals. Full belly breathing activates your vagus nerve, which switches on the rest and digest response in your parasympathetic nervous system. But also your diaphragm has a major role in digestion, as the physical structure attaches to your gut wall and creates more space for the passage of food, and also literally pushes the food along the system as it contracts. It's also worth pointing out that you don't want to drink a lot of fluids around the time of eating. And we say 15 minutes before to 2 hours after. Some weight loss advocates will tell you to drink lots of water before you eat, to fill you up, and so you eat less. But this increases the pH of your stomach acid, making it less acidic, and it dilutes your digestive enzymes. So I really don't recommend it. If you have gut issues, I would also recommend avoiding alcohol, as it is extremely irritating to your gut, and we can talk about that another time. When we eat is also really important. We want to eat ideally at least 3 hours before bed, and the very minimum is 2 hours. That is finish eating. I appreciate that's hard for many, especially with work and busy lives, and also breaking a habit. But it's easier now as many of us are working from home, and we can food prep in advance, and I thoroughly recommend using a slow cooker. We should also allow at least 3 hours, preferably 4 between meals, without snacking. That is, unless you have a medical condition where you need to regulate your blood sugar, or you've done a workout, and we can talk about that another time. But ideally, if you have stable blood sugar levels, you would be leaving at least 3 to 4 hours between meals. You should also go a minimum of 12 hours between your last meal of the day, supper, and your first meal of the day, the next day. It's actually now widely accepted that you no longer need to eat breakfast, which is often termed fasting. There are various types, and actually it's really good for you, and we can talk about that another time. I would say a note of caution with women, however. There's very few science experiments done on women. As Steinbeck wrote, these are of mice and men. Most science experiments are done on mice and men. And this is because women are very complex creatures and our hormones cause a whole different response. There is now emerging scientific studies saying that fasting can negatively affect our reproductive hormones in women and create perimenopausal symptoms. So do take care in this and tune into your body to monitor how you're feeling. Fasting is actually a form of hormesis, which means good stress, and it supports autophagy, which is the body's way of cleaning out damaged cells, removing dysfunctional cells, helping repair, and it's actually anti-aging. And we'll talk about hormesis another time. Autophagy is also helpful in fighting cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And actually fasting is something that we would have done naturally as hunter-gatherers in times of feast and famine. So our bodies are well designed to do this. But again, please take care in your own circumstances. So to summarize then, we've talked about why we eat with the emphasis on nutrition, not energy. What we eat and how that affects our digestion. We've commented on the fact that you might not only have food sensitivities or true allergies, but also different types of food can be difficult to digest, and that there are ways to improve it. We've talked extensively about how to eat, the ritual of food preparation and using your senses, tuning in by being present and mindful when you eat to help produce digestive enzymes in your mouth and gut and also your stomach acid. Switching everything off and switching your focus to the food and eating right throughout that meal. We've talked about posture, sitting down and sitting up straight, 3 full breaths before you eat, and making sure that you're doing diaphragmatic breathing throughout eating. Taking small bites and chewing at least 30 times. Allowing yourself lots of time to eat in a relaxed environment, i.e. at least half an hour, if not 45 minutes. And preferably giving yourself time to digest afterwards, not too much activity or stress right after eating. And not drinking too much during or around mealtime. We've also talked about when to eat, not eating directly before bed, not snacking too much, giving yourself 3 to 4 hours between meals, a minimum of 12 hours between supper and breakfast. And obviously there are times when you do need to snack, and that is personal to your circumstances and other health issues, as well as when you exercise. I've also given you my recommendations for taking hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes and using these supplements if you are over 35 years old. Again, I can help you with that if you need any information. So I would encourage you to just listen to your body and tune in. And hopefully this talk has given you some food for thought. I do encourage you to try these things. If you have truly implemented these practices and you are still struggling, getting stomach cramps, bloating, maybe irregular bowel movements, I would thoroughly recommend those supplements of getting a good digestive enzyme and a hydrochloric acid supplement to help you. And they are particularly useful for the digestion of protein and fat, which can be really hard. Otherwise, do get in touch and I'll happily help. And if you want to know any more information or ask a question, you are free to email me on info@holisticwellnesscenter.com. Holistic is WHOLISTIC, holistic. The idea behind this is that we're dealing with holistic wellness for the whole body, mind, and spirit. And any Americans, please note the spelling of centre is R-E, not your way, E-R. Please do let me know if this was useful and what other topics you would like me to cover. And I'm also keen to hear the best times for these talks. Perhaps a different day or time might work better for you. You are receiving this recording, so hopefully you can watch this in your own time, and I'll continue to do that if that's useful for you. And as I mentioned, I'll do another of these talks in a month on how to tell whether you're digesting your food properly. You might think your digestion is fine, but it's guaranteed to surprise you. So do tune in, and I'll send out the details soon. So until then, I'd encourage you just to slow down, listen to your body, and tune in. Thank you.